In this episode of the Reclaim podcast, we're joined by Kate to share her inspiring story of recovery after enduring years of emotional and psychological abuse and a subsequent mental breakdown. This is her story.
So good to have you in. Thanks very much for coming in. I've been excited about this since we talked about it. So I'll just give the listeners and the viewers some context around how this came about. So I approached you in the gym. And the reason I approached you was I was going to propose that we do a podcast around nutrition because I knew you are in that game as well. And that's when you disclosed a snippet of your story and your journey, and I just found that so profound. That's like, okay, we need to come in and share that because, like I said, there are people out there that need to hear it. And here we are, and I've been really excited ever since, so welcome aboard.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. You're in the fitness game, obviously, and fitness has been a part of your life for how long?
So I've been in the fitness industry now for 12 years.
Always as a personal trainer, or where did you start?
I started off very young, actually. At 15 years old, I was running gyms. So I was a gym manager by 15. I opened up my own studio a few years after that. I've worked in the Gold Coast, Melbourne, Brisbane, obviously Perth, majority of the time.
And so, same with me. I've always been active. I've done all different things, like, I was always playing sport, and the way that I trained was always different. Like, if I was playing sport, I would train according to what that sport dictated or required. So I'll go from rugby then to boxing and, all these different things. I did martial arts, but fitness and that just being active has been such an important component of my life, more so around mental health. So, and I actually didn't appreciate or discover the mental health benefits till after.
Yeah.
Till I went through some challenges.
Yeah.
That's when I really appreciated the mental health benefits, So, it's incredible.
Yeah, fitness and mental health really coincide together.
Yeah. So, tell me about your journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I have a story that is quite profound. It entails love, loss, and the resilience of the human spirit. So it's a tale that transcends the ordinary and it delves into the intricacies of mental health. Yeah, the journey began aboard a luxurious yacht gliding through the Sydney harbour. I saw him and I was instantly captivated by his confidence. We had a dynamic duo, bit of a powerhouse couple. Our connection deepened as we conversed for a few hours on the top of the yacht. It was a soulful bond unlike anything I had known before. I had a desire to spend my lifetime with this man, even though we had just met. It was something incredible.
How old were you then?
So I was 19.
19.
Quite young and probably naive
Yeah.
at the time. I ended up moving to Brisbane where we connected. Relationship moved very quickly. After 2 weeks, we were living with each other.
Wow.
So our relationship was marked by adventure, passion, and shared dreams. However, as life demands encroached, our vibrant relationship did start to crumble down. Work consumed both of us. He had his own business. I had 3 at the time.
Wow.
So work just consumed us and it really eroded the magic that we once had.
Yeah, and you're both young. Like how much older, or was he the same age? Or
So he was 2 years older.
2 years older,
Yes.
yeah.
So
and that's a lot for 2 young souls, That's
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, so the passion and the fire definitely dwindled
Yeah.
because of life, and neglect and resentment crept in.
Yeah.
And it fueled arguments and it just pushed us apart.
Over what kind of time frame?
So, we were together for 6 years total.
Right.
So this was around the 3-4 year mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So John's descent into drug and alcohol and gambling addiction and his controlling behaviour, isolating, it really further strained our bond and it transformed our home into a battleground.
Do you know what the reason was for his descent?
He had extreme issues with depression,
Right.
suicidal tendencies and thoughts.
Wow.
He was a real high achiever.
Yeah.
And when he wasn't achieving his
Yeah.
grandiose goals, he would really beat himself up about
Yeah,
that.
really go into self-sabotage, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So the attempts of counselling faltered as he withdrew, and it left me to navigate the turmoil alone. It wasn't until my therapist recognised the signs of abuse that I realised the extent of our dysfunction. So despite my efforts to salvage the relationship, the revelation of his infidelity really shattered any hope of reconciliation.
Sorry, the counselling, did you guys do that separately, or you went to relationship counselling, like together?
So
or?
I attempted to offer relationship counselling,
Yep.
but after 5 appointments, he didn't show. He didn't show up to any of the appointments. So I was really left to navigate the turmoil alone. He wasn't willing to work on us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also I would really try to get him to rehab centres. I contacted his mum, his friends. I tried everything I could for about 2 years to help pull him away from the addiction, from the depression. I wanted to take him to the doctor, and he would just refuse every attempt made by me to get him the help that he really needed.
And how were you sitting through all this, like as a young woman? Like, how were you managing? You were shouldering that burden. You know, you were carrying, you were trying to make things work, doing this, that, and the other. So how were you tracking through all this?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I have a very nurturing nature.
Yeah.
And with John, he was very reckless and wild. So I think navigating that, I felt very trapped, very isolated. As the relationship went on, he would actually ban my family from coming to the house. I wasn't allowed any friends. He had access to my phone. So it was very controlling, very isolating. There was a lot of financial abuse as well, mental abuse. I would be called names in front of people when his friends would come over. I was belittled, disrespected. There's a lot of sexist behaviour as well, and attitudes towards me that started creeping in. And just slowly over the years, I would just notice that this isn't the man I fell in love with. And I feel that the drugs and the alcohol and his bad mental health was changing him as a person.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that, do you think the reality of it, or that's something you've just had to tell yourself to, because you're obviously a good person and you want to see good in everyone.
Yes.
And I don't know John. So I don't, just apart from what you're telling me, so I don't know if his behaviour was narcissistic or if it's kind of just through the drugs and alcohol. But it just sounds like you become now his emotional caretaker, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I definitely felt the polarity and the dynamics of our relationship were quite strained.
Yeah.
Because of his depression, for almost a year, he refused to leave the house. So he didn't work, he didn't leave his room. He would play video games for up to 12 to 24 hours a day. And so I was basically his caretaker. I would come in, give him food, look after him. He would abuse drugs and things like that when I would leave the house. I'd come home and have to nurse him back to health.
Wow.
And that was a weekly routine. Every Friday night he would go out with the boys. He would get quite reckless, and every Sunday he would come home and I would nurse him back to health. And that was my relationship for about a year. So I felt very trapped and isolated.
Did you have any family support around you? Or?
They were banned from coming to the house completely.
It's incredible.
And so me and my family did drift apart because they felt that I was choosing him over the family.
Yeah.
So relationships were strained. I lost all of my friends because there's countless times they would want to hang out and I would have to make up an excuse.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell them the reality, fear of judgment.
Right.
And, I was really alone and all I had was him. And, I felt like a bit of a mum or something to him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you yourself become detached? What was the consequence for you stepping up into that role, into that caretaker role? Because it had to have, over a sustained period of time, had to have taken its toll, I'd imagine.
Definitely did.
Yeah.
I think that I definitely suffered a bit of depression and isolation, definitely in that time.
Did you recognise it, or were you just so consumed by everything?
So consumed because I would see him and think that he's in a much worse position than me. So my own mental health and my own self-care took a back pedal. Absolutely, it did. Because he was the priority. I put him before myself, his needs before my own, and I neglected myself. Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's no self-care, no.
Yeah. So things were getting quite bad, and at this time I was doing a lot of talk therapy with my psychologist.
Right.
And she told me that I was in a domestic violent relationship with a narcissist. And he would constantly gaslight the situation, the way I was feeling. So, she basically helped me realise that I needed to get out. So I slowly started making steps towards leaving. And around this time, I found out that I was 6 weeks pregnant.
Oh, wow.
As I'm planning to exit the relationship.
Yeah.
And I did come from a Christian faith background. And obviously if a child is conceived, that's just God's plan for you.
Yeah.
I remember walking into the room and, he was gaming and I just said, take the headphones off. And there's a bit of an uproar about taking the headphones off. And I said, look, we've got to have a chat. Turns out I'm 6 weeks pregnant. And his response was very indifferent. He said, look, I'm going to go to the pub. I'll be back. I need to process this. And he was gone for a month. He didn't come home for a month. I could not contact him. I tried contacting his friends. I said, look, this is a very serious thing that's happening, because I was really planning to get out of the relationship and now this has happened. Couldn't contact him for 4 weeks. He finally came home and he had crashed his car. He had gotten into several fights. Just came home in a really bad way, and I just thought to myself in that moment, is this the man I really want to raise a child with? He told me that he had warrants out for his arrest. He had caused a lot of problems in the last 4 weeks. People were after him. He came in, he locked everything up, he installed cameras, made me extremely paranoid, and this is all while I'm pregnant. And I just thought, I'm really trapped now. I'm even more trapped than before.
What was your feeling around that month, after he's come back after that month? That month away So narcissists have this, everyone in their lives plays a role. Okay, so everyone's a role player, and if any one of those characters goes off script, it derails them. So that month away was just him being completely derailed by a number of things. And then when you confront a narcissist about their behaviour, they'll turn out to be your reaction to be the problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
it was quite difficult. I had hyperemesis gravidarum, which is a condition that affects 1% of pregnant women. Basically, you can't keep food or water down.
Wow.
Everything comes up. So I had that for 3 months. I lost 15 kilos, which was huge for me. I was borderline anorexic at this point while carrying a baby. So the hospital staff were really concerned about me. I had to spend quite a lot of time of my pregnancy in the hospital being fed by an IV drip because the condition was quite bad. And I remember comments from him while I was at my most vulnerable, like, you look disgusting, you're ugly, I can't believe you're carrying my child, I wish I went with somebody else. I guess the abuse just became worse and worse, and my mental health was really starting to slip. Whenever I would go to the hospital, he would take the opportunity to go out gambling and partying, and I wouldn't hear from him for weeks at a time. So then I reached out to my mum and I said, I really need your support through this. I just have stress hormones going through me. Whenever I had checkups with doctors, they would say, your cortisol is through the roof. You need to just relax. And I said, I can't, because my life is about to change dramatically. I'm carrying a child I was not prepared for. Then we get a phone call from our landlord, and this is when I was 6 months pregnant. He says, I'm selling. You guys need to get out of the house. And at this point, I think it was about 5 weeks, I couldn't get in contact with John, and I just thought, what do I do? So me pregnant, extremely sick, with no support, no help, I had to pack up the house, and finally I get in contact with him. The house is all packed up. He just completely loses it, gets quite physical, not with me, but just punching doors and walls and creating more damage to the house. He's really angry, and he says, I'm not wanting you. I don't want this baby. We're completely done. I have a girlfriend, and that is us.
Are you kidding me?
I wish I was. So now I'm pregnant, I'm extremely sick, the house is packed up, I've lost my personal training business, my lash artistry and my sport remedial massage business. They're all gone because I'm too pregnant, too unwell, physically and emotionally to actually work. So I've got no money, no house, no job. The love of my life has now left me for somebody else, and I'm thinking, what do I do? So obviously contacted my mum. She said, come and move in. And I finished the next 3 months of my pregnancy with the support and love of my family. Day before I was about to give birth, I thought, you know what, I'm going to call John because this is half of his child as well, and maybe he would like to be there for the birth. Gave him a call, and on the phone he said, look, I'm not going to be there. You can have the hospital staff hold your hand because that will not be me. Do not put me on the birth certificate. I'm leaving the state and we are done. Do not contact me ever again. Hung up, blocked me. 2 years on, I've not heard from him. The only time, sadly, that I did hear from him was about 2 weeks after my daughter was born. I received a very long text message from him that stated he was going to do some horrible things to my family and come in and take my daughter. So this was 2 weeks after she was born, and I think that was the catalyst for all the hormones that were surging through my body. My mental health was down. I was already paranoid. My brain collapsed and I suffered from postnatal psychosis, which is quite a serious diagnosis.
It is.
For the first 7 months of my daughter's life, I had extreme postnatal depression and anxiety. I could not leave my bed for 7 months, and I tried to commit suicide 6 times.
6 times?
6. And on the sixth and final attempt, my mum caught me. She called the authorities because she just didn't know what to do. For those 7 months, I could not care for myself. I could not care for my baby. So my mum and sisters were doing the mother role while I lied in bed and just wanted to not be here anymore because I just could not handle what was happening. So the bond between me and my baby was extremely strained. Didn't feel the connection, the motherly love and care that you're supposed to feel did not come naturally to me at all. And then my mental health was just so bad. I was paranoid. I had delusions. I stayed awake for 21 days with no food, no water, because I had hallucinations and paranoid thoughts that if I slept, my baby would be in trouble. I just, was not in the right state of mind, and my mum recognised that. So she contacted authorities and I was placed in psychiatric ward for 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah. Very long time. I was separated from my baby, could not see her or anyone for 3 months, did not have a phone, was just locked in a padded cell with no sunlight, just basically either tube food because I would refuse to eat because I just wanted to completely not be here anymore.
That was still your thought process? Like there was no, like your sense of self-worth was just non-existent and you just did not want to be here? So,
my entire self-worth and self-being was placed in that one man. My whole identity, love, I had no love or respect for myself. Everything was for him. I was living for him at the time. When he disappeared and everything else that had happened, I just could not see a reason for being here unless I was with him. I had neglected myself so much to the point that when he had walked away, I thought I have nothing left. even though I couldn't recognize that I had a beautiful newborn and she was the beacon for my life, because there was a mental block.
Of course.
I couldn't see that. So I was diagnosed with postnatal depression, postnatal anxiety, postnatal psychosis, bipolar, catatonia, schizophrenia.
Because of the hallucinations?
Yes, because of just the state that I was in. The fact that I was refusing food, water and sleep, the paranoid delusions I was having.
Yeah.
I thought that if I went to sleep that John would come in and do those horrible threats that he made against my family. Constantly for 12 hours a day looking out of my window. I would just be staring
But
outside.
at the time it was very real for you.
It was.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
I thought, on one hand, my family are going to be in danger, and then the other hand is I cannot look after my baby. I cannot look after myself. I can't look after her. So my mum took on that mothering role for me.
Right.
Because mentally I just had checked out completely.
So you're being committed. Your thought process is basically there's no rational thought, essentially. You're just going through the motions. You're being force-fed. Was there any point during that 3 months that you started to maybe catch a glimpse of the future or what the future might look like?
So essentially I was misdiagnosed from that particular institution, and the doctors, I had one really good day where I seemed sane enough and the hospital staff let me out. But looking back, I was definitely still not okay. I didn't receive any talk therapy while in hospital. I didn't receive sunlight, proper nutrition, any exercise. None of the things that I do now that have helped heal me were offered. I was on 12 different medications daily.
And that's unfortunate reality of institutions like that. It's just...
I was a walking, talking zombie. When I came back home, I would look at my daughter and think, I can't do this. I still could not do this. The bond was not there. In fact, it was more like we were strangers because we had been separated for 3 whole months.
Yeah.
She was on a bottle now. Things had changed. She was crawling around. And I thought, this isn't the newborn that I held in my arms. I've missed so much. So it was very foreign to me.
Yeah.
So it went for about 4 months and the core issues were not solved. I did not have any follow-up from the mental ward at all. No follow-up. I was just left to be out in the real world to just handle things. So after 4 months, a few possibly not the best people contacted me, and so I would go out and I became like John. I became addicted to substances. I would go out partying, got addicted to alcohol and just the party lifestyle, because for me that was a way to switch off from my reality.
Of course, yeah.
Things got quite bad where I again stayed awake for another 21 days. And this was just from, I suppose, anxiety or just not being happy where my life was. And I stayed awake for another 21 days and I came home and my family was so worried about me, the state I was in. They'd never seen me like this before.
Yeah.
And so my mum said, maybe you need to go back into the ward because you're not presenting as my daughter. And I think she realised at that point that my mental health was not okay and that I shouldn't have been discharged from the hospital so early.
You know, like you said, the mental health system is so clunky. It's so hard to navigate. And like you said, the follow-up, if that had been implemented, then you may not have gone down the track of self-sabotage. Yeah. You know, if they had monitored adequately, that may not have happened. Because, look, I mean, the connection with your daughter, like, that's understandable because your self-care dropped long before she was born.
Yes.
So you're still learning how to self-care again, like take care of yourself again, but you have this little person to take care of. Like, how do you pour from an empty cup, you know? So
it's completely empty.
Yeah. So what happened then with your mum suggesting that you should be?
It went for about a week, and then I just started completely losing my mind, and I would say some really outlandish things. My reality was completely warped. I would see things that weren't there. I was hearing things that weren't there. And my mum thought, okay, she's on some sort of drug. It's the only way to describe it, because the way I was acting was if I was on something quite heavy.
Yeah.
So she drove me to the hospital and she requested a drug and alcohol test.
Yep.
The drug test came back completely clear. And the hospital staff could not understand how I had stayed awake for 21 days, a second time, with no drugs in the system. All the drugs had, flushed out by that time. And I was just not able to sleep because my thoughts would be racing, and at night time I just couldn't and wouldn't sleep. So then they sedated me and I woke up in a mental ward. So it was the second time I was there. And this time I thought, this is not where my life is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Before the hospital admissions, before I had my daughter, I was always mentally okay.
Yeah. Well, you're a young woman with 3 businesses, and so you had your head screwed on, so obviously. So, yeah.
So, and at the second admission, I just thought to myself, this isn't right. I've got to really put myself first. And now I've got a little person who's going to look up to me as a role model. And do I really want to spend the rest of my life in hospitals? Hospital staff threatened that I would spend some time in Greylands. And I would speak to the other patients and they would tell me, once you're in Greylands, the chances of you getting out is very slim.
Which is true. So hang on, they threatened. Why did that come about? Were you not cooperative, or what made them? I
think maybe there was some biased staff at the time, but they would just, I think maybe even societally, we don't understand postnatal depression.
That's the truth.
It's actually a condition where there's a mental block and you cannot form a bond with your child. But without understanding the science behind it, I think people can really judge the situation. I lost family members, even to this day, that would just say to me, how could she not love her daughter? Yeah. How could she be such a horrible monster of a person that she cannot look after her daughter when she's...
Because they think it's that simple.
Yeah, absolutely, and they don't understand that I was mentally unwell.
Yeah.
So I think some of the hospital staff, when they find out you're a single mum, you have a baby at home and you're in the hospital because you can't look after your baby, you can't look after yourself.
There's a certain judgment.
A lot of judgment from staff, from other patients.
Yeah.
And maybe that was the pivotal point for me to realise, okay, I've got to do something about my life. Yes, it's not the way that I wanted it to look. This is not the way I pictured my life at all. I was quite successful before. I was very ambitious, very driven, hardworking. I had established 3 successful businesses. And this isn't the way that I thought my life would go. But I thought, I need to make the best of my situation. What's the decision? I was at complete rock bottom. It was like, I'm either going to take my own life now and leave the pieces for my family. They're already looking after my daughter. They're completely fine. If I'm gone, the burden's lifted off their shoulders. That's how I thought. Or I really just put some fundamental strategies every day and I try my best. And if I fail, I can take that other road. But I don't want to take the easy way out and not try. So I promised myself I'm just going to try for 6 months, and if I fail, then I can take the easy way out. So I promised myself 6 months.
That would have taken a lot of strength, and I really admire that, because most people don't go through that thought process.
Yeah.
So did you know what the strategy would look like, or have you outlined that yet? Or?
Very, very simple, and my mum always says to me, baby steps.
And
absolutely. I follow that now to this day, and I thought, okay, we need to start with when I first opened my eyes. Because when I would open my eyes for about 1.5 years, as soon as I opened my eyes, I would feel this deep anger wash over me that, like, why did I have to wake up? For 1.5 years, every day I felt so angry of just being alive. So then I thought, okay, I need to radically change my thought process when I wake up in the mornings. So I'd wake up and I would start with gratitude. One tiny little thing just to be thankful for something. And in the ward, it would start with, I'm thankful that I got a new set of pajamas to wear.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that they gave me a comb. I can brush my hair. I'm thankful that I got a new tube of toothpaste and it tastes nice.
Yeah.
Little things like that, And then it would be like, okay, what's next? I need to get a bit of sunlight.
Yeah.
Because just being trapped inside with artificial lighting, artificial air, constantly hearing screams and, violent outbursts and the security, you're constantly monitored by cameras. You feel slightly paranoid all the time.
Of course.
I thought, no, I need to just go out into the yard and just lie in the sun. And so I just lie in the sun and look at the clouds, the birds and the fresh air. And then it would turn into a little bit of a light stretching routine. Then it would turn into, let's just do 10 squats a day. You know what? Maybe I need to work the upper body. It's all about balance. And it would be like, let's just do 10 push-ups. Now I need to work the core. So it would slowly turn into a daily exercise routine.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah.
With a bit of stretching, which that was more meditative state for me. And then it would be like, you know what? I need to eat a healthy breakfast. So I would start requesting some healthier options.
Yeah.
Because what they would give you would be Cocoa Pops and just terrible nutrition-wise.
Yeah.
And I felt that when I started eating healthier and more protein-rich foods, my mental health was actually getting clearer. I was starting to think more. I was thinking not only about the micromanaging my day, it was what can I do tomorrow? What can I do next week, next month, next year? And my mind just expanded because I was fueling my body with the right foods. I was getting the exercise in. I was writing my goals down, my aspirations. And then I had a big plan that I wanted to see my daughter. So it took about 3 weeks of sort of pleading with the staff, showing them that I was mentally getting better. And then one day it got approved. When my mum came in with my daughter, I just dropped to my knees in uncontrollable emotion. And I thought, the bond is here. It's finally arrived. And I hugged her and I cried and I thought, I do love this child. She is mine and I'm going to do whatever I can to protect her, to raise her, to love her. Just the bond, it was like, I just was overwhelming.
Yeah. So the authentic you, she was always there, but she was just kind of covered in stuff.
Yeah.
So you had to peel away the stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I think it was about a week later I was allowed to leave the hospital. And I lived with Mum for a few months there. And, I do still struggle sometimes,
Yeah. But you have the tools.
I've got the tools necessary. And about a month after being discharged the second time, I became gym manager of a small gym. I have started working with one of the top gyms in Australia with the top personal trainers. I'm being guided and mentored daily by incredible people in the industry. I've got a good set of friends. I've got a beautiful connection with my daughter now. We're about to celebrate her second birthday on Saturday.
Yeah.
A big party planned. Daily, I still follow those steps.
Mm-hmm.
I exercise daily. I eat well. I get sunlight for at least 20 minutes a day. I always think about what I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
Gratitude is a big thing. Self-awareness, self-reflection, self-development. I read a lot of self-development, self-help books. And I'm also researching the behaviours and traits of narcissists, educating myself on the red flags.
And that's a good thing to do because that'll clarify a lot for you. A lot of that muddy water will be cleared. How's your relationship with you now? How's that developing? You've started recognising yourself again, like she's emerged.
Yep.
So has that whole self-love, has that developed, or is it still a work in progress? Where you're sitting with that now? Right? You're doing all the right things, clearly, but has that relationship with yourself been galvanised? Would you say? It's always going to be a work in progress. We're always working towards it. There's no destination. Yeah. We're constantly working.
It's constantly a work in progress, but I've now gotten to the point where I do talk therapy once a month. I take myself out on dates.
Beautiful.
So I'll take myself, I'll get dressed up and go out to dinners just on my own.
Yeah, wow.
A lot of self-love, I we'll spend time in the sauna or getting a massage or just going out for lunch with friends, reading books, just spending time with getting to know myself.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know who I was for the last 8 years.
Yeah, exactly.
2 years of being a new mum and obviously in and out of psychiatric wards, and 6 years of being in a very toxic relationship.
And how's your recovery from that trauma? Because narcissistic abuse it's traumatic, and it does take some time to heal from that.
Yeah, it does.
So where are you sitting with that?
I feel that I still have a long way to go
Yeah.
in terms of healing. I do actually suffer from PTSD. So there will be certain things that, like, if I hear a song that he used to listen to, I'll sort of break out.
It triggers, yeah.
And I'll be triggered. So I've still got a long way to go. I think even my selection in men, sometimes I'll always gravitate to someone who needs help, someone who's broken that I can help fix and nurture.
And that's a reflection of who you are as a person, as an empath, as a carer, as a kind person. You're naturally an emotional caretaker. I am too. And sometimes I'm too much of an empath, like I take on so much. But I do understand that you're drawn to, not to be the hero, but to fix.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I also gravitate towards sort of controlling narcissistic men. So I need to really work on myself.
And the other way around, they'll be attracted to you because you have the traits that they can take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
so in terms of that, I've sort of made a plea to myself that I'm going to remain unattached to anyone, single, until I have really healed myself as a whole and I can go into the next relationship as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Every day I strive to become a better person and just be the best version of myself that I can.
Yeah, and that, again, being the best version, that's not a destination either, because, each season's going to require a version of you that's optimal. So, and those versions change according to the season. So I guess being the best version you can be in that particular season is the way we should be approaching life, because just trying to be the best we can be, that's just going to be too overwhelming, and there's no end. Like, when do we reach a point, say, okay, now I'm absolutely the best I can possibly be ever?
Yes.
So
It's quite draining.
Yeah, exactly. But going back to when you realise that that now you have to take the horse by the reins and just have these strategies in place, was there ever an aspect of fear that, oh, hang on, what if it doesn't work out? Like,
at that point, I had been through so much that my biggest fear was living, because that's not what I wanted to do. So for me, I just made that promise that I need to try for 6 months. If I fail, get what I want anyway.
What is it about living that scared you so? What was it?
I think it was living without him. I think in reality,
Wow.
It was living without him. I had put my entire self-worth, being, identity in this one person.
Yeah, and he didn't value any of it.
No, not at all.
No, he didn't appreciate any of it.
No.
So yeah.
Yeah, so when he was gone, I just could not see really myself happy in any other circumstance. So that's what it was that made me so suicidal, because I was never that before.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like once your mental health starts dwindling, your sense of identity goes with it.
Absolutely.
Your thoughts are so scattered and fragmented, and nothing really makes sense. So I understand the confusion and just wanting out, and and that's why I wanted people to hear your story, because there'd be so many in that situation, just at that point, like, where the hell do I turn to? And they see no way out but to jump, Yeah. And really it seems like the easiest step to take, but it's, or the most liberating, because it just ends your pain then.
Absolutely.
But it's the worst step you could take.
It
It really is, because, on the physical earth, your pain might end, but it carries on. So
Pain transfers.
it transfers,
to other
like,
people.
absolutely. Your mum, your daughter, your sisters, everyone carries that.
Yeah.
And it's amplified for them because they'll carry guilt as well.
Yeah.
You know, like, geez, we clearly we didn't do enough.
Absolutely.
So
I
that was
really-
very brave step you took. You know, the hardest step is the first step.
Absolutely.
You know, and each step is different for everyone. But once you just nudge that first little step, everything kind of, it just comes together. Yeah.
I have a very good, solid routine daily. I don't experience depressed or sad moods. Actually, I'm quite highly energetic and happy.
You are. Well, it's really good to see you at the point where you are. Like, and it's only quite recent.
This was in August I was discharged.
This is a few months ago.
Yeah. So I really feel
Yeah.
I've made a full recovery
Yeah.
and bounced back in a very short amount of time. So I feel a passion to want to work in mental health now and help others.
That's a massive gift you have now. And a gift you're going to carry on to your daughter as well, because she's going to grow into some sort of young lady with you as a mum, I'm sure. So, yeah. Yeah, look, that mental health education and sharing awareness that's why I love this space.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so many people that need it. But the key is to make sure that your cup stop, fill it up.
Absolutely.
You know, yeah, because guys like us, like we will just keep giving. We'll just
Yeah.
keep giving of ourselves. Yeah, so I do try and catch that.
Good.
As soon as I feel that I'm dwindling, like, okay, now I need to take some time out and just take care of me.
People are very fixated on our physical health. Often gets neglected is the mental health.
100%. And spiritual too. And I think, you know, the spiritual side of things there's been a shift. I'm happy to say that I feel there's a shift in people's consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, like more people are starting to embrace that because, I mean, science has proven it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that we have a soul and we have whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
you know, soul or quantum field, it's there. We have an energy. It radiates outward as well. Like we have a field of energy around us and that's been measured, you know, scientifically.
Absolutely, yes.
So a lot more people are embracing that we are connected to
Higher power.
a higher power. Again, whatever terminology you want to apply to it, we are connected. There's undeniably so. And I think that'll go a long way in speeding up people's recovery as well.
Yes.
Because, like, you know, that illusion of isolation and detachment is just that, because you can never be detached, really, because we are just...
Yeah.
You might feel it because socially and physically you're not, you know, with other people, but you can't possibly be alone. Your story it's so profound and it's such an important one to get out there.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's so good to see you doing well.
Thank you so much.
It really is. People out there are going to take a lot away from this. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's a really important one to share.
I agree. Thank you
So,
for having me.